What's up, boys?
How you doing? What's going on?
All is good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Fun market we got going on, huh? A lot of what did you call it? It's a kangaroo market.
The kangaroo market, yeah.
Kangaroo market, to say the least.
I think we passed the kangaroo. I think it's a different animal right now.
Well, it's a lot of fun to watch.
What we know is that it's crazy. That's all we know.
Yeah. Awesome. So today we are going to speak on SEC filings, why they are important. Filings in general, not just SEC filings, because we are also focused on smaller size companies that report to the OTC. And why do we want to be on the top of those filings? Why do we want to read them as soon as they come out? So, Elon, walk us through.
You know what they always say: if you're not first, you're last. So that's it couldn't be more true with SEC filings, right? Or OTC filings or any company filings. But yeah, I mean, we going back to why this was created, why we cared so much about knowing when a company files their reports, right? So, I mean, as most people might know or not know, but companies are required to file their financial statements. Some are required to file it to OTC if they're not a 1934 Act SEC reporting company. Others that are an SEC company, 1934 Act company, required to report it to the SEC. So these are your 10Q, your 10 quarterly filings, Q1, Q2, Q3, and then your yearly Ks, audits, and so on. We can dive into a lot more, and perhaps we should, at a different later date on another slingshot together, and talk about the actual, I guess, idea behind accounting and filings and why, what they really mean. But the reason we created this type of kind of alert system was so we know as soon as a company files their financials, we get a notification. So I kid you not, it's the first thing I look at through my emails, right? I go on my emails on a daily basis. I get email notifications all the time. And if it's a SEC alert telling me whether the company filed an AK, whether they filed a 10Q, whether they filed a 10K, and I literally dig in to see exactly what it means, meaning what do they do, right? So you always, they're required to let the public know, right? They're required to let the public know what their financial statements look like. They're required to tell any material events, right? Whether a company went ahead and signed an agreement with a bank to raise capital, whether they signed an agreement to do an M&A. Those are all AK filings. Those are material events. The SEC required companies, the SEC filers are required to file their financial statements, and that's what we call that they are current, right? That they are current with their financials. For us, going back to what we do, we rely on exemptions from registrations on a lot of our transactions. And one of the exemptions that we rely on, such as 144, requires the company must be fully reporting. If they're not fully reporting and they're not current on their financials, we can't use the exemption, which means that we can't sell the shares if that's what we're holding, right? Or we can't convert the debt into shares if that's our way out. So it's really important for us to know that they're current. Not only that, in their financial statements, they have their balance sheet, right? They have their income statement, their balance sheet, cash flow statements. We read through them to see what other debt might be outstanding, what is the strength of the company as it relates to their cash flow, what is their monthly burn. I mean, there are so many things. So we look at it for competitive advantage. We look at it to see if they're sustaining themselves. We're looking at it to see if they've raised other money from financing activities, and if they did, what type of financing activities they did. So it tells you so much. I mean, this could go on for hours, right? About just going into this or whatnot. But we really created it to know that they're fully reporting, and because they're fully reporting, we can go ahead and we can start our process of getting our return back. That's just how that's our instrument, right? But from that, it just continues to grow. We want to know if they've done any other financings, and if they did, is it debt financings? Is it somebody that we know that came in and gave them capital as well? So it gives us a competitive analysis, competitor analysis to really understand who else might be in this company, who else lent the money. Um, it's amazing. There's 13G filings, right, to see who the insiders are. There's 144 filings. There's 14C filings, which is definitive and or pre proxy, right? So if a company wants to go and do a reverse stock split, or if they're doing a vote, or if they're doing whatever it might be, all these are filings. And if you're not first, you're last. So you really need to be first. You really need to know. I can tell you numerous times, and I remember where it was just myself trying to figure out how to do all the paperwork and all the deposit work and this and that and whatever, just waiting for the day that the company gets current, and going on OTC markets or going on SEC.gov and just refreshing, going in, trying to figure out companies telling you they're filing and we simplified it. I mean, we made it very, very easy where you're getting email alerts. The email alerts literally give you a link to the filing. You could see exactly what it is. You could tell what's happening, and it changes your investment kind of philosophy. It helps. It makes everything easier and timely, efficient. So I mean that's why it started, right? And there's so much more that comes out of it.
Yeah, and I
Aro,
mean,
what are you looking at when you're looking at the filings?
so from the way that I like to look at the filings, at every kind of filing, it's just information, right? So the regulators, whether it's FINRA, whether it's the SEC, whether it's the local regulator in whatever market you're trading, what they want to do is provide the investor, or make the company provide to the investor sufficient information for them to make a decision, right?
Full
So
disclosure.
yeah, exactly. Full disclosure, everything that's going on. So it's not just the financial position. It's if I signed an agreement with someone, if I'm buying another company, if I'm being bought by another company, if I raised money. So at the end of the day, the regulators just want companies to provide information, whatever kind of information it is. And I think we've mentioned it numerous times here, is that investing at the end of the day, it's an information game. It's how much information do you have, and what conclusions can you arrive with that information? So if you think about it, it really boils down to how fast you can get the information. Because let's say that there's no insider trading, nobody's taking advantage of anybody. We all have the same information. The 10K that I read is the same 10K that you read. So we all have the same information. So it kind of goes down to how quickly you can get that information, and how quickly can you read it, and how quickly can you assess whether it is good or bad. Should you buy? Should you sell? Should you short? Whatever. So what we did, and what I use it for, I do some trading for the fund, and I need to be aware of these type of things. So when the company files an 8K, which an 8K is just a report that lets you know if a material event has happened, I need to know, because I know that the 8K is going to move the market for good or for bad, and I need to be prepared for whatever outcome may be. So it is important for me to know the moment it is filed, that it was filed, so then I can go ahead and look at it and see and assess what's going to happen next. And that information, it is available, it's public, but you need to go into the SEC.gov or OTC markets or CEDAR if you're talking about Canadian companies. You need to go into the website, look for the company, refresh, and look if there's new filings or whatever, and that takes time, and time is money. So what we ended up doing is building a tool that sends us an email automatically whenever a filing is done. So I have to skip all of that steps, and I can go directly to the information and see what's going on, what's happening, if is it good or is it bad, is it not good, and it also keeps a record At least, from what I use it, it keeps a record on my email of the things that have been going on. So I can tell when a company filed, for example, their last quarterly or the last annual without having to go into the website, into whatever. So it kind of makes my job easier and it makes me more efficient when it comes to decision making. If I have to buy, when to buy, if I have to sell, when to sell, and it's efficiency and it's information at the end of the day.
It's an amazing tool for the normal investor, right? You create your portfolio of 10 companies, let's say, and you have a tracker on them, right? So any filings they make, you get to see them, and we even break it down to the type of filing it is, right? Whether it's just an earnings filing or it's a material event filing, or it's a proxy or a registration. It breaks down and it keeps everything really, really organized. Um, and it provides you the
Keep you on
alerts.
your toes.
And it gives you the alerts at the end of the day, right? So it's there for you. You plug it in, don't have to worry about it again. You have to do it works magic, right? So you get it. As soon as the company files, you're getting it, right? So it's an automated message that coming to you, before anybody, at the same time as everybody else, right? So it gives the little guy same leverage as the big guy, right? There's nothing different. As long as, of course, there's no insider information that those guys get, right? So
Yeah, and for example, I want to share something that I've seen, at least when you're dealing with small companies, micro caps, small caps. When you're talking about the big companies, the blue chips, information gets digested almost instantaneously. I mean, most of the hedge funds have AI models that read through the 10Ks as faster than I can open the damn filing, and they can see whether it's good or it's bad. But when you're talking about smaller companies, especially small and micro cap companies, the time that the market takes to digest the news is longer. So if you have a tool that gives you the press release or the filing or whatever the moment it is filed, you have an edge over everybody else. And I've seen that happen a lot of times. I've seen filings with material events. The market doesn't react until 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, even until the next day. So if you have the tool that gives it to you right away, that it in itself, it's an edge over everybody else. And you can take that to your advantage to make money or to lose less money if that's the case, of course. So that's kind of why we believe the tool is important for the smaller investor.
That's a great point. And one of the things we can do down the line is build the tool to kind of like analyze how much time it takes the market to react to certain news. And that can be a very big leverage for the small retail investor to understand which companies he can focus on, where he can actually, react to the market faster. Because like Paulo said, with the smaller companies, they don't have the big hedge funds that are involved, and they already have like a lot of strong tools like this that they're paying thousands of dollars for, probably more. So now the retail investor can have some sort of like a leverage.
Yeah, exactly. And this, of course, helps the smaller investor not only because it doesn't, I'm not even sure how much a Bloomberg terminal costs. It costs
it's
thousands of
expensive.
dollars,
It's expensive.
It's
tens
a
of thousands of
$5,000
dollars.
per terminal. Yes,
Exactly. So if you're talking to the retail investor, they're not going to spend $5,000 in a terminal. But if you can give them access to a tool that is cheaper and that it's going to bring them information, then of course you can extract a lot of value out of it. And especially when it comes to this, like I think I can't get tired of saying it. Investing is information, and whether you get a lot of information or you get the information quicker, it's going to be a positive, net positive for you as a small investor.
absolutely. Paulo, maybe speak about the different type of reports.
Yeah, so you can kind of break it up into categories, right? So you have the periodic reports, which the periodic reports are pretty much your quarterly reports and your annual reports. Some companies report semi-annual and annual reports only. Those types are included as well. But it is just pretty much, I like to think of it as a picture in time of a company's financial position. So let's say it's a quarterly, you have your Q1, March 31st, and you kind of take a picture of what the company looks like, how much money they've made, what's the financial position, how many assets they have, how many liabilities they have, how many cash flow has they made, and you can, of course, compare to companies and through time how they change. And the annual is pretty much the same, fiscal year, how the company looks at the end. And then you have another category of filings, which are the kind of the current reports, which the only use for the current reports is to report any material event. It has to be material, significant event that happens with the company. So whether they bought a company, they got into a merger, they raised money, debt, whatever, it's just a report that, so the event is disclosed. So it doesn't remain, that's kind of the whole situation on disclosure. So of course, the insiders are going to know, and the current reports bring that information to every investor out there. And then you have, for example, registration filings, which are filings that are used if the company wants to register shares for selling. So when a company goes public, has an IPO, they have to file a Form S-1, in which they registered every share that they're going to sell and the details of the offering, who's the underwriting bank, who are the buyers, who are the sellers, which market are they going to be listed on? Is it NASDAQ? Is it New York Exchange? Is it CBOE? Whatever market it is. And there are other types of offerings, for example, companies give stock options to your employees in lieu of payment, and they have to register those shares. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the Form S8 that they need to file. So, and then you have other types of offerings that are more niche, kind of more specific to micro caps, small caps, Regulation A offerings, Regulation D offerings. So I think you can kind of break it down into those categories. Maybe you can also add the proxies. So every company by law needs to have a board of directors and they need to have shareholder meetings annually at least. And so if you're a shareholder of a company, you have voting rights. So the proxies give you the information that is going to be discussed on the annual meetings, whether it's approving pay for management, issuances of shares, ratifying the public accounting firm, all that kind of stuff. It goes in through the proxies, and you can see the proxies the time they get voted and before they get voted as well. The company has to disclose the matters that are going to be voted on, and then when they get voted on and they get agreed upon, they issue another filing so that they let shareholders know what the results of the votes are. So those are kind of the main type of filings that you can find in any company, pretty much, because it's, as Alon said in the beginning, they're mandated to do it. So a company that doesn't do it, they're gonna be delinquent with whatever regulator you have in the market. So those are the type of filings that companies are, obliged to disclose.
This is good. This is very, very good. Yeah, I think we covered, most of the reasons why an investor, why any retail investor or any investor in general needs to be on the top of the filings, and why he wants to get them as early as possible and try to react as soon as possible to the information he gets from the filing. Elon, anything else do you want to add?
Yeah, it's you would hope that a company is being as transparent as they promise to be, right? Because that's that's markets, right? It's about transparency, it's about full disclosure, it's about telling you, but unfortunately they're not, right? um and if you're the little guy, you really need to be on top of your game to know when it's time to get in and get out, right? I mean, some people, this is a livelihood, right? This is what keeps, this is what brings the meat and potato here, right? um So if if you don't have the access, or if you're not focusing on the access and the quickness and the readiness of the financial statements, let's say, right? I mean, you can't trust anybody. You have to do your own due diligence. You have to understand really what's going in there. You have to understand really what they're doing. And the only way to do that is to keep track of what the filings at the end of the day, right? And what's in the filings. You can read as many investor hub boards and trade boards and Twitter accounts and follow, but at the end of the day, you could be a trader like this or a fundamental trader like that, but if you're not first, you're last. So at the end of the day, make sure you put your companies in this little tracker, and it's gonna do it all for you. It's by the click of a button.
Yeah,
Amazing.
there's a movie that I really like, which I think every investor should watch. Margin Call, very good movie. And the director of the bank in the movie, he says something that it stuck with me since. Like, there's only three ways to make money in the market. So you have to be first, or you have to be smart, or you have to cheat. And of course, cheating is bad, and we don't condone and we don't do it. But I think this tool allows you to be firstly quick, because you're gonna get the filings and notifications as soon as they're filed, and it allows you to be smart as well, because when you look at the filings, you can analyze the information. So if you look at it that way, you're being smart and you're being quick at the same time. And at the end of the day, that's how you make money. There's no other way.
Love it. Awesome. Guys, I think this was another great episode. Thanks a lot. And see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
What is this? Thank you, boys.